Just like in film production, when video games are made, certain aspects that seemed pretty cool during the initial phases of development will end up on the cutting room floor. While the majority of these cuts are made during the conceptual stages, some elements can still be part of the game right up until the last moments of production. Sometimes it will be characters or weapons that don't make the grade, while other rarer times games can see whole levels removed. Maybe they interrupted the flow of the game, maybe budget restraints made them impossible to fully produce, or maybe they were just a little bit crap. Whatever the reason, most of the time Joe Public will have no idea that these lost levels even existed. Sometimes though we'll spot tantalising clues hidden amongst game assets or files that show us a glimpse of what could have been. In this video I'll be taking a look at 6 examples of these lost levels. Levels that almost made it into the final release of a game, but for whatever reason were cut out and lost forever. This screenshot on the back of the box for Super Mario 3 on the NES was one of the first examples of a lost level that I'd ever experienced. I completed the game a couple of times before I came to the realisation that I'd never played this mysterious level before. The screenshot showed a nice bright grassy area full of music blocks and parabeetles that looked super fun to play, and I was convinced it must have been some kind of hidden world. Trouble is, it wasn't, and not being able to find it drove me mad. Not only that, but the map for World 1 was also slightly different on the box shot. Viewed side by side with the map from the actual game, you can see quite a few differences, including a missing third level and a completely different route for the shortcut. Nowadays though, we know that these screenshots were taken from the prototype of Super Mario 3. Not much footage of the prototype exists, but in this brief clip from a Japanese documentary released at the same time as the game, we get a sneak peek at an alternate version of World 1-1. While the mystery level on the back of the box never made it onto the cart, hidden amongst the code in the final retail version are around 15 unused levels. Some are probably early versions of other levels, like this one that resembles World 5-3, while some like this one seem to be tester levels for the developers to try out different layouts for bonus rooms. While none of these lost levels are meant to be playable in the retail release, it is possible to access them using a Game Genie. Or by being naughty and downloading a special ROM, but shh, don't tell anyone you heard that from me, okay? Way back during E3 2003, audiences were treated to this demo of Resident Evil 4 that showed off a level and character that never made it into the full game. Dubbed Hallucination Biohazard 4 by its developers, this conceptual build was created in a bid to bring pure horror into a Resi game. To do this, the team imagined a plot that didn't revolve around science or reason, a plot where a mysterious virus causes protagonist Leon Kennedy to suffer terrifying hallucinations. Taking place in a spooky castle, the hallucination level featured a paranormal baddie named Hookman, who would emerge from a painting and teleport around trying to sink his rusty hook into Leon's handsome face. Old Hooky wasn't easily defeated either, and was impervious to physical attacks unless bathed in light from Leon's torch. Basically, it did the whole Alan Wake thing way before Alan Wake got his Alan Wake on. In the end though, this stage was cut because it was impossible to cram it all into the GameCube's memory. To make the hallucinations work, the team would have had to create 2 3D models of every asset in the game, one set for normal Leon and the other set for when he was tripping balls. Although the version of Resident Evil 4 that we finally got was pretty much perfect, it is a shame that we'll never get to experience Hookman for ourselves, especially when this version of Resident Evil 4 was so scary it caused Shinji Mikami to issue this stark warning during his E3 2003 video message.
Resident Evil 4 will be scary than ever before. Don't pee your ants.
Around 5 years ago, I attended a Kinect showcase event where I had a hands-on with a Kinect Star Wars level that never made it into the final game. It was this level shown here during Microsoft's E3 conference in 2011, and it featured a random Jedi trading blows with the Trade Federation's droid army. It was okay, but it suffered from the same input lag that affected all Kinect games, and because of that it never really felt like I was properly in control. There's no real info out there about why this content was cut, even though it was in an advanced state of production, but rumour has it the project changed hands so many times due to Kinect not working properly that the game had to be continually reworked from scratch. I guess that's why the final release was just a random mishmash of already established Kinect genres and not the incredible Jedi simulator we were all hoping for. There are actually quite a few levels cut from Sonic 2 during the course of its production, but the Hidden Palace Zone is perhaps the most well known. Before the game's release, screenshots like this one were shown off in various publications around the world, so gamers were understandably very confused by the level's absence when the game finally shipped. This colourful zone features dinosaur-style badniks, purple water, and a couple of really cool bridges that light up as Sonic runs across them. Hidden Palace Zone is actually playable today in ROM form, thanks to the discovery of a few prototype builds, the most popular of which being the Simon Y prototype, named after the man who stumbled across the ROM on a Chinese website. Sonic's creator Yuji Naka once said in an interview that this ROM comes from a prototype build that was stolen from a toy fair in New York in 1992. This ROM was then mass-produced by software pirates who profited from Sega's hard work by selling the dodgy version all around Asia and South America. Interestingly, Hidden Palace Zone still exists in the retail version of Sonic 2, albeit in a rather corrupted form. You can access it with a Game Genie if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. As you can see here, although the title card remains intact, pretty much all the artwork has been removed from the game, so it's essentially unplayable. And it also looks a bit like clown vomit.
Elizabeth, let's get out of here!
The BioShock Infinite that was released in 2013 is very different to the BioShock Infinite that was shown off in early concept art and gameplay demos. In this footage from E3 2010, for instance, the character model for Elizabeth looks rather different to the Elizabeth we got in the final build. Plus she wields a bunch of crazy powers that never made it into the full game, like the ability to superheat objects and conjure up massive storms. But anyway, all this stuff was removed way before release, and I'm more interested in cut content that's still on the disc. Content like this observatory hidden atop a snowy mountain that was found hidden within the game files for the Sea of Doors level. The observatory doesn't have any textures on it, but the door has been programmed to open, suggesting that this location was halfway through production when it was unceremoniously binned. We'll probably never know how this observatory was originally supposed to fit into the story, but perhaps it has something to do with another model found hidden in the Sea of Doors code, a replica of Citadel Station, the space station from System Shock and System Shock 2, which are spiritual predecessors to BioShock. Perhaps this was a neat way for Ken Levine to tie both his series together using the Infinite Worlds plotline. In another case of misleading promo art, early magazine previews for Streets of Rage 3 featured screenshots of a motorbike level that almost, but didn't quite make it into the final release. These screenshots, taken from a preview featured in a 1994 issue of Mean Machine's Sega, show Axel and Blaze tearing up the mean streets of wherever the hell this game is set on a pair of yellow dirt bikes. Now, motorbikes like these first made an appearance in Streets of Rage 2, but back then they were firmly placed under the butts of the enemies. The fact then that players would soon have the chance to pop a few wheelies themselves was a pretty exciting prospect. Trouble is, for some unknown reason, these levels were cut from the game at the last minute, and now only scraps of them remain, hidden amongst the code of the original retail cards. In this footage though, you can see those lost motorbike stages in action, restored by hackers using a Japanese version of the game called Bare Knuckle 3. Thanks to this nifty bit of video game archaeology, we now know that there were meant to be 2 motorbike levels in Streets of Rage 3, one where the player crosses a bridge avoiding barrels thrown from the back of a truck, and another that sees them taking part in a fist fight with an enemy biker whilst racing along a desert road. So there we go, those were 6 lost levels that you'll probably never get to play, but they were only a tiny example of all the cut video game content out there. Have you heard about any lost levels that I missed and that you would love to play? If you have, let us know about them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more from Eurogamer. Goodbye!
In GTA 5's case, they're used to highlight the absurdity of the game world, the violence, the death, the dog sex. Actually, that's true of all 3 of these games, minus the dog sex. There's something about seeing the protagonist gazing into the camera while something goes on in the background that highlights how bizarre game worlds can be.